Listeners note, this podcast pertains to mental health and addiction issues. You should know that we are not medical professionals and recognize that you may be suffering or know someone suffering with mental health or addiction issues. If that is the case, please contact the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration 24/7 hotline at 1-800-662-HELP.
Hello and happy Veterans Day 2022. I'm Diann Cohen and I'm joined by my co-host Leslie Dillbeck. And we are together white knuckling it through life with you. Today is the perfect day to talk about being vulnerable, especially since it is Veterans Day. So many of our vets are so vulnerable. So what does it mean for someone to be vulnerable? It means that this person is in need. They need special care, support, or some type of protection. When someone is vulnerable, when they are vulnerable, they are at risk, they are unsafe, they're in danger, they feel very exposed. I know Leslie and I feel that way. And then they also feel very powerless. But what can we do if it's us that feels vulnerable? What can we do? Well, we can reach out to someone else. And I know a lot of times this is going to feel so uncomfortable. But the truth of the matter is, it's our safety net to be able to get help. So we need to reach out to friends, to family, to a crisis hotline, or our house of worship. There are places we should go. But I know a lot of times people don't want to do that. Why? Because they feel like they're going to be judged. And I want you to know that judgment is something that we inflict on ourselves, and we oftentimes then project it onto someone else. And the truth of the matter is, those people around you, they only want you to be safe, healthy, and at your best. They don't want you to be at risk. So please make sure that you reach out. Now, what if it's a loved one or a friend that is being vulnerable? You know, some of them can really hide it very well. Well, we got to look for clues. Leslie spoke in the last episode about her daughter and how her daughter's behaviors changed, right? And she was able to take that and be able to approach her daughter to discuss these things with you. So if your friend, loved one is emotional, combative, angry, maybe clingy, and they don't want to be left alone, perhaps they stop participating, they're absent a lot, they no longer accept your invitations to do things, and they just want to be left alone. Well, if you are seeing these things being exhibited, please reach out to them, right? Intervene. Don't take no as an answer, but also don't badger them. Just be there for them. Offer to listen to them. Offer to take them to a clinic or to the crisis center, or perhaps just to listen to them, right? Now, does this mean it's going to work the first time? No, it doesn't mean that necessarily, but you keep doing it. In my case, we had to reach out to our son multiple times before he would even consider the help that we wanted to get to him. So be loving, don't be preachy, and know that this person really does appreciate you reaching out to them. They just might not be ready to receive it. Now, Leslie said that she was an open book, right? Earlier, she said she put everything on her sleeve in the first episode. And that is when I reached out to Leslie, because I could see there was something going on in her life, and I was able to share with her my experiences, and then we were able to support each other. Now, on the other hand, I would say that most people didn't know. My closest friends knew, but my clients, for example, who I saw on a daily basis, knew nothing. It wasn't until my son entered the workers' compensation arena and would tell stories to people, they'd say, I had no idea you were going through so much. And it's like, yeah, but for me, I had to keep that close in. It wasn't until somebody reached out to me, or if they were a close friend, was I willing to talk about that. So Leslie, I am so grateful to you because you were one of the people, because you were vulnerable, you felt exposed, and you allowed yourself to discuss this with me. I had one more place I could go and heal. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And we look at vulnerability as a weakness sometimes, and that is certainly not a picture of professionalism I want to put out there, or even just, as far as my own humanity, but we all are messy. And I talk a lot about that, just in things, in circumstances in which I meet up with people, they'll start telling me things, and I'll just say, you know what, we're messy. We're messy. Everybody's got messy somewhere. But the problem is, in our society, we don't like messy. That is something that's somewhat taboo. And so when you are able to be vulnerable and share where you're at and what you're going through in a safe place, of course, I think that's a very important piece of it, is know that it's safe. I sometimes err, maybe, in giving a little bit too much of myself to people, but that's who I am, and I'm okay. I can take it. I wanted to talk today about where we're at now, with my daughter. I talked last episode about what happened, her mental health issues. If you didn't listen to that first episode, please go ahead and go back and listen to Diann's story and my story, so that you know where we're at today, and know what we're talking about, and can reset the story a little bit. But the healing process for my daughter was not an overnight situation. It's been a couple years. I listened back to the first episode, and I heard myself say, a few years ago, my daughter went off to college. It's actually almost been 7 years that this journey started for us. And it feels like it was yesterday, because it was so painful and hard and difficult. And for me, it was especially difficult in that I need to give you an admission here. I'm a recovering control freak. I'm a perfectionist. I've had to learn to give up a lot of control, because I learned through what I went through with my daughter and her illness. There was so much that was not under my control. I mean, I tried my hardest to go back and look through pictures, look at Facebook. Like, could I tell that something was wrong, when she was 12 years old or 13 years old? Could I see it? Could I see the signs? Well, what I noticed on Facebook was that it was all the happy things, when she went to Africa a couple times to do missions trips, or piano recitals, or fun birthday parties. I noticed all that. So I do want to remind you guys that not everybody's life, and we have heard this, I hope you've heard it by now, that it's a snapshot, it's a highlight reel. Social media is nice and wonderful, but it can be very challenging. One of the things that I learned about mental health and mental illness is that the recovery and the healing process is really up to the individual who's suffering. That was really hard for me, right? If my daughter had diabetes or cancer or a broken bone, she would have a doctor saying, okay, let's put this cast on, or let's give you this chemotherapy, let's do this certain treatment, and she would be obliged to do it. But this came down to therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, medications. And let me tell you, the road with the medications, and I will tell you again, I said it at the beginning of our episode here, that we are not medical professionals. We are just mamas that have been through it, right? So the medication piece of it was like a nightmare, because with mental illness and the medications that are prescribed, it's really trial and error. They try this, it makes them too sleepy. They try that, they can't sleep. They try this, it's not alleviating their symptoms of their mental illness. And it was a good year and a half. I'm not going to go into all the different medications that were prescribed, but some were so difficult for her, because they just made her so exhausted. And she was trying to go back to college, trying to work. I remember one time she called me and she's all, oh my God, Mom, I was so tired that in between classes, I just decided to go sit in my car and take a nap, like just a 20-minute. And she goes, I woke up 5 hours later in my car, asleep in the parking lot of the college that she was going to. So those are the challenging pieces of it. And it was, yes.
I'd like to put something in there. Even when they get the medication right, and you're so excited, oh wow, they're feeling so stable, and things are going well, and they're doing so good, and they're happy with where they are. 3 months later, it stops working.
Right? Oh God, that
is just so horrible. And
it's almost like you have to learn how to lower your expectations. I wanted it like quick fix, give me the pill, let's do this, let's get her going. She came home from the hospital. She was still going to outpatient. The funniest, not funny, it was sad. She was in the inpatient at the hospital here, and she wanted to stay, and they were telling her, well, we think you're ready to transition out. She's like, no, I think I need to stay longer. She wanted to stay because she felt safe there. She felt safe from herself, and that was really hard to see. Sorry. That was just really hard to see that somebody would want to stay in there. If you've ever had to go visit somebody that's in that setting, it's rough, because you see the gamut. Every mental illness pretty much is in there. And if you want to know all the different mental illnesses that are out there, just Google it, and there's a laundry list. I mean, it almost seems endless. And so to see my child, my adult child, in a place that when I went in there, I was like, oh my gosh, this place is so sad to me. Think that's where she felt most comfortable. It made me sad, but we knew she needed to come home, and she came home, and that was, oh my God, that was super rough, because she wasn't completely better. It's not like, oh, you're discharged because you're healed. It's you're discharged because you're stable. So she got home, and we had to set all these boundaries. And of course, that was just not good for her and for us, because she was an adult, and she didn't like being told what the boundaries were for cohabitating with us. And it was a trigger for her in some way. Maybe it was a control thing she felt. She'll talk more about that. She's going to be on our next episode and share her story from her lens. And I think she's just so insightful. I do, want to say that my daughter is one of my heroes. And I say that because I have watched her work it. She has worked through her health and her recovery hardcore, and has even helped other people that are suffering, as I know Diann's going to share about Jake as well. But we looked at the different situations that we were facing with her cohabitating with us. I mean, I didn't trust her because she hid so much from us. There was a lot of respect loss, she didn't respect us. And then it's just kind of like snowballs. There was anger, there was frustration, you name the emotions. There were days that were like, okay, today is a good day. And that's what I would just have to tell myself, like, today's a good day. Okay, we've had 2 good days, before I could say like, oh, we're getting there. And it's been a long time. It's isolating. You don't want to go out. You don't want to be around other people, because really it's what is so prominent in your life, and you just don't enjoy. I remember one time we were invited to our friend's house for New Year's Eve, and I made a whole crock pot of whatever I was taking. I don't remember what it was. And it came down to us going, and I told my husband, I'm like, I just can't go. Like, I just am shook right now. I'm gutted. Like, I cannot go and play board games with people tonight. I just can't do that. And that was okay. I had that was a boundary I had to set for myself. I wasn't going to go and be fake. I can't do that. The challenging part of her living with us was that she just it was not healthy for her. So I have 2 angels that came into my life many, many years ago. It's a husband and wife that have children the same ages as my children, and they took her in, and they were part of her healing process. And I say that because I felt like, well, I'm the parent. I need to make this better for her, and I need to help her. And there was just something there I couldn't do for her that this family could. And I'm okay with that. Believe me, I am okay with it. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's about the fact that they were able to help her and help her reset in her healing. And that was so beautiful to me. I was so appreciative of that. 2020 was hard. I'm not going to lie. 2020 was the year that she would have graduated with her peers, from college. And I looked through that time, and I remember seeing that stupid social media and seeing everybody's kids graduate, and feeling sad for her because I knew she was seeing that too. And I was like, oh God, she's seeing this person graduated from SDSU or Berkeley or wherever. And I felt sad for her. And I had to remind myself, and I told her this very thing. I said, sis, this is your journey. It takes you however long you need to do. And comparison is the thief of joy. And I have held that statement, that comparison is the thief of joy, as like one of my most common mantras that I like to remind myself of and others of, because it is, we can't compare ourselves to others. And especially when we're talking about somebody that was so ill and so challenged in so many ways. So that was 2020. And then we know what happened in 2020, right? Right. Horrible. Diann, we missed people in 2020.
I sure did. Though, I want to revisit something you just said, that you had these people come into your life at one point, and then they came and they helped your daughter. And I think it's so important that we accept that type of help, because oftentimes if we're the parent, like you and I are in this instance, we feel like, we should be able to do this on our own, and it's our child, so we need to be the ones in charge of this and to support them and be with them. Sometimes it needs to be somebody else. It just does. And I think we have to be able to step back and accept that and say, thank God there's someone. I know that, a lot of times some people really embrace the 12 steps. It really means so much to them, and others don't. So whatever or wherever your family member or friend finds comfort, I think we need to make sure they know it's okay, right? That it's okay that they are there, and be thankful. I mean, it's great that you accepted their help. I think the biggest problem we do is we blame ourselves. We just can't blame ourselves. We can't. We can only do what we can do, and certainly support that person.
I appreciate that, Diann. That is so true. And it was so helpful to us. I mean, I think of that family, and the Mother's Day comes around, and I think of the mom in that family. She's like a mom to my daughter, and I'm okay with that. Like, I just think so highly of her and appreciate that they helped her so much. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm going to fast forward to where we're at now. 2020 was kind of a 2021. We're kind of just this period of this journey for us of my daughter regrouping. It kind of was, in a way, good for her somewhat, because life was extra simplified. And with her illness, when life is chaotic, that is not good for her. It is not healthy for her. So her life was way simplified. That same family, the dad is a high school teacher and has been for many, many years at a local high school. He helped her get hired at that high school. My daughter started out working in the science lab. She was in charge of the room, all the supplies, the beakers, and she would set up the labs for the teachers and such. And then she decided to start working with the special ed department. And she right now is studying. She's back in college to become a special education teacher. And she's a paraeducator now. She supports the teachers. She is a one-on-one. So she has one student. She calls him her Velcro kid. And she goes to all the classes with him, but she's done everything from having to change diapers of students, help with G-tubes and all sorts of things. And she's with mod severe students. So they require a lot of help. And I want to tell you, she's living on her own. She pays her own rent. She lives in an apartment here in San Diego. She has a very healthy perspective. But I think more importantly, what I want to tell you is she did the work. She did the work. I couldn't do it for her. I could encourage her along the way, which Diann talked about that at the beginning. And she did the work big time, and she still does the work every day. So every day for her is a challenge because she doesn't know what that day will hold. And for me, it's hard because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, okay, remember how I said, oh, today's a good day. Oh, 2 good days, 3 good days. wow, we've had a whole good year. Okay, is my luck running out? And I had to stop looking at my timeline like that and just take today for what today is and be grateful for it, and grateful for the work my daughter did to help herself get better. Thankful for the people that have surrounded me, including my friend here, Diann, and thankful for the professionals that helped her work through her illness, which will always be. It's not like it goes away. The symptoms subside. So I want to encourage our listeners with that. And I know that may not be exactly what you're going through, but a lot of the nuts and bolts of what I just told you can equate to other things in your life that will help you have peace and help you be healthy in your mindset. So I want to turn it over to Diann, because our stories are somewhat similar, but a little bit different because it's a different struggle. And Diann, why don't you share with us where you're at today with your boy and how you got there?
So my son's issues were alcoholism and drug abuse, and he went to rehab twice. And during counseling, they do tell you, oh, you're going to fail 8 times. You're going to fail at least 8 times. And oh, he hated that. I wish they would stop telling them that. But I think they're just painting a realistic picture for them. But so he failed. He did fail the first time around. The second time, he was able to stick with it. And so he has been, thankfully, clean and sober for 5 years. Now, have they been a perfect 5 years? No, he's had his struggles. Medication talk that we talked about is real. That struggle is really real. And, just life in general, when you have somebody who has these issues, what seems nominal to us could seem very big to them. And so he's learning to deal with all of those things. I'm a multitasker. My husband's a multitasker, and my son is a monotasker. He really can do one thing at a time. He's now aware of that, I think. And so he's not trying to spread himself so thin. And I think the thing is he is so self-aware. I am so impressed by that. I have never met anybody more self-aware. He'll tell me something and I'll think, I never would have thought about that at all. I think it's just really amazing to see his growth, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm sad there are medication struggles because it's just part of the process. But the fact that he is able to overcome the drug and addiction is really fantastic. And I am so proud of him for that. Now, I have to say, this is something interesting. So after he gave up drug and alcohol, when he gets a craving, he loves a certain type of candy, Melt Duds. He loves Melt Duds.
Ooh, I like those.
Right? And Melt Duds is what he wants to have when he has a craving. Unfortunately, they're in the middle of stopping production. So they're very hard to find, especially where I live. I live in a very small town, 4,000 people. There aren't a lot of stores that you can buy these things. And I have such wonderful colleagues who have been sending me boxes of this for my son. They want to be part of his recovery. And I just think it's so lovely. Now, they could never have been part of the recovery if my son didn't share his story and imparted on me the importance of sharing that story. And they're like, we just want Jake to be well. And they just send them. So I want to say, if you can do something for someone else because you know their story, please don't be afraid to do it. It's not going to offend them. Trust me. It brings me great joy when somebody hands me a package of something for my son. It lets me know that, people are aware of his struggles and they're willing to help him. And I do believe that he is going to succeed.
That's amazing. And I loved what you were talking about, self-awareness. That is one of the biggest keys, I think, to the recovery and healing process is that, Jake knows and my daughter Diann knows, like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z to stay healthy. So for my daughter, it's like good sleep hygiene. Like she's like a little old lady. She tells her friends, sorry, can't go out. She's only 24 years old, and she'll just say, nope, past my bedtime. Like she knows that she needs a solid amount of sleep. She knows that she's a monotasker as well. So she knows, like, not good if I'm like spread too thin, and she will set those boundaries for herself. And she is very adamant about it. And she's very vocal about it. Like, no, this is why I'm doing this. I need to be healthy. And I'm sorry that you're not happy with me right now, but this is what I have to do for myself. And I love that they see that, because like you said, I wish I could do more of that, where I say no more, or just say, no, not, no, I gotta set a schedule. My daughter writes down her schedule. She's very, very self-aware. And I can't wait to hear from Jake, and I can't wait to hear from my daughter. We've been having the best conversations over the last year or so, as we've gotten past the regret, the anger, and it's all gone through forgiveness, understanding, and empathy. And I love that. And I think that you probably see it through the same lens, Diann. We know there's a lot of forgiveness, love, empathy, and understanding that goes into it. So do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I think we just have to remember, if we're dealing with a loved one, we just want to give them grace. Sometimes it is so maddening, and we're like, really, they're canceling on me at this last minute, or they didn't wake up because they were sleeping, or whatever the case is. We just have to give them some grace. This isn't something they want. But if it's you that's struggling, please, I beg you, ask, tell, reach out to someone, because you shouldn't do this all by yourself. It's a tough struggle. And there are those people around you that will help.
Thank you. I shared with you at the beginning of this episode some phone numbers and hotlines for you to reach out to if you're struggling with addiction or mental illness, or know someone that is. There's a lot of resources out there, and who knew I ever would need to know these numbers, but thank God that there is help out there. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode. Next episode, we will talk to the person that went through the journey, my daughter, and we'll follow that up in subsequent episodes with Jake coming on, and then also a doctor coming on with a special program for substance abuse and recovery through that. So I want to thank you for joining us. I want you to remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and sprinkle it everywhere like glitter. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye, everyone.